and separate under the B section, separate monthly finance from the report. Just separate, pull out the separate, the monthly finance report, so we'll vote on that separately.
Is there a second to that? Hearing none, the motion fails. I think, I'm sorry, were you saying something?
No, go ahead, I'm sorry. So the reason I'm just, she's saying she doesn't understand, so I'm just wanting to
I
help
don't understand why you would want to
clarify.
Yeah.
Because half of that, I mean, there's two different there's the monthly finance report and then there's the other report. One am going to approve, the other I do not want to approve, and so I would just like the opportunity to not approve something as a board member, is all I'm asking. And regarding the field trips, there's 2 field trips that I approve of and 2 that I do not of after some investigation. And I would like to approve the 2 field trips, but I would like the opportunity as a board member to not approve the other.
So the motions have been put forward and did not receive a second. And certainly happy to have some conversation, or Mr. Zink to have some conversation on the consent agenda. And if we received those kind of requests prior to setting the agenda, that might have been easier to do that. So it might just be in the timing of how you'd like to do
Well,
that too.
and there's really no reason why I can't do that. It's just a political thing with the 4 of you for not granting my motion. It's just stubbornness on your part, so
It's really not.
it actually is. Why can't you second my motion then, Kelly?
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Ms. Shaker?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Peak?
Yes.
Ms. Bowden?
Can you please reiterate what we are voting on?
We are voting on approving of the agenda. It has a first and a second.
Okay, thank you. No.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes. We'll move to opening items. Mr. Hughes, would you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll reserve word president comments for later. Dr. Long?
Thank you. I'd like to comment publicly on some of the postings and rumors about the district limiting book choices and book titles. These rumors are rumors. The district's been discussing ways to assure that parents know what materials their students are reading, especially during the free reading blocks of time during the school day. Nothing was decided, nothing has been done other than discussion. Secondary teachers have always had book lists that they use. The secondary curriculum team is reviewing that list with teachers to assure appropriate placement in the curriculum as well as updating the list so it can be shared on the curriculum website. The books are not being changed, but some of the older books that are no longer pertinent or of interest to students today may be removed, but that's totally a choice that is being discussed by the curriculum team and the teachers. For elementary, we've been discussing with no current decision how to create topic-related lists of online resources and how to share those with each other and with parents. We also are exploring the idea of parents signing a permission slip, choosing either that student can free browse on online resources or the parent prefers to have a created list for their child to use during free reading. Nothing has been done about that. It's still in discussion stage at the executive team level and the curriculum team level. In our BLT meetings, teachers are sharing that they create book lists related to specific standards like weather, climate, and other specific topics where reading materials are limited. Many already share those lists with parents just for informational purposes. Additionally, the district nor I have limited scholastic book fair titles. I did mention to one school only that we need to be aware of concerns related to some topics that parents are concerned about. I did not specify the topics. However, Scholastic does offer controversial topics in their selections, and some schools have elected to not offer those books unless the student requests those titles. Those decisions were made at the building level, and I believe Scholastic has been arranged for in our buildings long before I ever started having the conversations. I've never in 46 years banned books in schools or classrooms, so the rumor is totally false and actually very unwarranted. And I just want to be clear about that. We are just trying to get a handle on making sure that our parents know what the books are, making sure that our teachers have the resources that they want and that they need. And as we move into a new reading adoption, that's even more important this year, so we know what we have and we know what teachers can access and use in the classrooms. So we are not in the process of limiting or keeping books from going home or keeping titles that a student may request with parent permission. We're not doing any of that at this point in time, nor do I plan on during my tenure here for this year doing anything with that. The second thing I'd like to add is we are still doing Stuff the Bus through October 20th, and we'd like to make sure that we get 3 buses stuffed. So we're asking for people to contribute and donate food and other items that were on the list that was sent out. So if we can share that with everyone and ask for additional supplies and food materials for our families that are in need, we'd really appreciate that. So thank you.
And they can drop it in individual school buildings or here?
Yes,
or at the
yes,
campus?
they can drop them off in the individual buildings. There are barrels there, and also at the central office, there are barrels there. And if they drop them at the central office, if we have 500 pieces, we might get a free pizza.
Well, you've heard it here, folks. Very important to help the central office out.
Free pizza for all the central office.
We really like pizza. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification on the rumor mill
Yes.
for the book banning. I think we've all been hearing those comments and really appreciate you sorting that out for us. Mr. Zink, treasurer's comments?
Yeah, I got an email back from Auditor Nancy Nace, who said she would be available to come to speak with the board. She spoke in September to the Finance Committee about property tax changes. She'll be able to do that November 20th. So if we have some availability with the board members, we can put a special meeting together, because we only have one meeting in November.
Lori, what do you say?
It would be a regular time, 6:30.
That would be a full board meeting?
Would it just be, yeah, not a question, a work session type deal, or would it be
We
a
might
full?
need to see what we've got. There may have to be business at the front of it, but I think primarily it's a finance.
Yeah, it'd be a lot to do with talking about the property tax changes, and then we would do the 5-year forecast.
Oh, okay.
Kind of a big deal. Probably, I can put a long presentation together to fill up the time if you want to.
Thank you for that extra effort on our behalf, Mr. Zink.
I suggest, I think our next meeting in December then is December 3rd. So perhaps, I think we also only have one in December. If we're going to add a second in November, perhaps we could push back the December meeting a week or so, just so they're not quite so close and then don't have a big gap.
I'll send out an email for everyone's availability, and then December gets a little busy for people too, so.
Yep.
All
So
right,
the first Monday in December would be the 4th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It would, yeah, it'd be the 4th, so, no, but between the 20th and the 4th, there would be a week between, but then the 11th or the 18th as well.
18's probably too late.
I'll send out an email. Okay, but let's count on November 20th then, when you
It'll work, I'll notice that out, perfect, thank you.
And please tell Mrs. Nix, thank you for joining us. I know there have been a lot of questions about that. All right, we'll move on to school spotlight. Mrs. Fuller.
So we'll begin this evening's school and student spotlight with Liberty Early Childhood School. Some of our youngest learners have been making connections with some of our oldest learners through the Big Paws, Little Paws program. Juniors and seniors from Lakota East have chosen to serve our community through this mentoring program, which is run by Liberty's counselor. Little Paws have been meeting with their Big Paws every Wednesday, receiving focused, positive attention and building a relationship while reading books to one another, writing stories, working on art projects, and even getting some help with homework. Now we have an Endeavor rocket whose love of science launched her to the state science fair competition. Cindy Beidenbach presented her project Bridges to Cincinnati at the Lakota Science and Engineering Fair sponsored by Lakota Leads. Not only did she win locally, She then proceeded to win at the district, regional, and state levels too. Cindy traveled to Cleveland to present her project at the 2023 Energy and Mobility Conference. Thanks to our collaboration with Butler Tech, Lakota students involved in STEM classes, which are science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, have the opportunity to use their skills, their leadership skills, to run their own chapter of TSA, which is the Technology Student Association. At Lakota West, with John Nicholas, the advisor, the TSA chapter has doubled in size this year alone, with more than 45 student members. There are over 70 different types of competitions that students can participate in. This past year, one West group entered the Systems Control Competition and was challenged to solve a problem on the spot, which is a toolbox full of supplies. They beat out 50 other groups from around the country, bringing home the first ever national championship in the program for Lakota West. And finally, I'm excited to introduce Sunshine Loader, Molly Pedersen, and Alexis Seckenheim from Plains Junior School. These 8th graders were involved in creating a community charity garden at their school. The project stemmed from weekly meetings with Lakota's 712 gifted advisor, Ron Heinrich. The meetings focused on theoretical leadership, which Mr. Heinrich describes as a reflection on what leadership might look like through the lens of enhancing our community. Then the students put their ideas and theories into action. Please welcome Sunshine, Molly, and Alexa to share more about their project.
Last year, Mr. Kendrick gave us a project to create a garden in our courtyard. He gave us a budget of $750, or what we were told was $750, but it was actually $1,000. During the planning process, we had to look at all the plants and flowers available to us. We had to narrow down which seeds would grow best in our courtyard. When purchasing these seeds and materials, we needed to under-order so we would have leftover money. But we did exactly the opposite and over-ordered. Thankfully, though, we had $1,000 to cover this. In the end, I don't think we would change anything about how this project turned out financially, but maybe a budget better. But everything worked out, and now we have a thriving garden.
Once our plants grew, we took them to Bethany United Methodist Church and an outreach program. This helped others in need of food that didn't have the funds. It wasn't just the community that benefited from this. We learned many new life skills, including how far to space plants, and how to overcome many challenges that we faced through this whole process. We had to be one step ahead of everything while gardening to make sure everything went well.
We started this project about halfway through last school year. We worked on the project all the way from then until now, and we're still trying to continue to make it better each and every day. Doing this over the summer was really hard because we were not at school to work on it all the time. Luckily for us, we were surrounded by an amazing community who put their time and effort forward into helping us continue this project. Although we have to move on into high school, we are hoping to come back as much as we can and give any help needed. We would love to have our 7th graders and future Plains students continue to grow and improve what we have started.
So stay there for a moment. Stay there. We might have some questions and comments for you. So you were talking about the time frame. So almost a year ago that you started this project and have maintained it.
Yes.
Good for you. That's not necessarily an easy thing to do. What would you say? You said you had a lot of different challenges. What would you say was the hardest challenge you had to deal with?
The gardening portion, like where we had to figure out like how to maintain like all the weeds and like everything like that.
You know, I don't think any of us really had any experience in gardening, so probably just like learning how to do everything and like how everything works and stuff like that was probably the hardest for us.
This seems like a terrific learning project, and you were also able to get back to your community. I commend you for that. That's awesome. Board, other comments and questions?
I just have a quick question. You said that you didn't have a lot of experience in gardening, but do you feel now like you have maybe a passion for gardening?
Yeah, I think we had a pretty big group that was helping us. Like, there was a lot of students from all over the school that were coming out to help, and I think like a lot of them have maybe like learned a new interest or something that they would be like passionate about, which is pretty cool.
So you kind of sparked their interest. That's awesome. Congratulations.
So it wasn't just the 3 of you volunteering. You had other.
Yeah.
That's great. Anything else?
You mentioned that you were hoping to potentially come back and mentor new kids for next year. Do you have any seventh graders you've identified that have been working on this or already mentoring people along the way right now?
So with Mr. Hendrick, he also works with seventh graders, and he's been like passing it down to them, and hopefully like in their grade, they'll be able to share with it.
I think this is great that you guys learned two skills, two that I can specifically mention. Budgeting and being fiscally responsible. I think that's extremely important at your age to learn, and then you can apply it through life, as well as learning to grow a garden. I think that's extremely beneficial, but you're also, the community is benefiting from this as well, so good job. What plant, or if any, was the hardest to grow or that did not sprout?
I don't think any of our plants that really didn't grow. I think
Okay.
everything kind of did as we hoped it would.
I think the one that thrived the most was the cucumber. I mean, we had a big surplus of it.
We had so many cucumbers.
Awesome, good job, thank you.
They can kind of take over a garden, can't they? Mr. Lee?
Yes, one thing I want to say is it's okay to be scared when you're trying something for the first time, but when you are consistent, have confidence in yourself, at the end of it all, you'll be successful. So how do you feel now that you're successful?
I think we just feel successful in the way that more people will become successful. They'll learn what we learned in making a garden and trial and error.
So that's lifetime lesson. Nothing is easy. Just make up your mind and keep going, and at the end you'll succeed. Thank you.
Very good, Dr. Lowe, Mr. Lee?
I'd just like to thank you for your report today. I remember whenever I was a principal, we did a garden with elementary students, and then we ate the food. So people tried different foods like cucumbers and peppers and things that they hadn't eaten before. Did you have a chance at all to experiment with any of the taste of food or anything like that? I know that you gave it to a very good cause, but did the class have a chance to try anything that they might not have had a taste for before?
A few of us took, as we were working on the garden, a few of us took a few cucumbers home, and we tried some, and they were pretty good.
Yeah, cucumbers turn into pickles too if you cure them right way. So thank you, thanks.
What tips would you give the future groups to stay within budget?
The treasurer question.
Go with the lowest budget that you think you have.
We're going to sneak that in, Mr. Zink. Would you all join us in the middle of the stage so your folks can get a picture of their part too? It's amazing. We'll move on to board reports. I know that Mr. Logan just had an update with Neola. Our next board policy committee is?
November 17th at 11.
Thank you. Our next business advisory committee?
November 17th at 1.
Butler Technology and Career Development Schools, Mrs. Schaefer.
We had a, I there were 64 slide presentation on an update on where we are with the strategic plan. So I'll try to boil that down a little bit for everybody. One of the goals in the strategic plan is to be #1 in student performance. And if you look at one of the metrics that was used was technical skill attainment. The prior school year, this school year, the goal had been 77. The ODE's goal is 69, and Butler Tech achieved an 81.4% technical skill achievement, and that was up from 76.2 the prior year. Another piece of data that we looked at was the positive post-program placement. The goal was 72%, and we achieved 96.8%, and that was up from 91.9 the prior year. Another metric was looking at the adult education program completion. This ODE's goal for that is 60%. Butler Tech's goal was 90%, and we achieved 93%, up from 86.3 the prior year. And then last but not least was the 5th day experience, which we've talked about, where students have the option, they can go to work, they can just stay home and take a day off, or they can take advantage of multiple offerings that might be a cosmetology person can go into the welding lab for a day, and they can just all kind of cross over and participate in different things. And 1,393 students attended at least one Friday. So that's been very well received by students, and they've gotten to take advantage of all sorts of different things. Of that, 647 attended for academic assistance, 315 participated in community service, 313 attended enrichment or field trips, 174 students engaged in work-based learning, 127 attended industry tours, and 100 went on college visits. And last but not least, if we look at secondary education applications, there were 2,837 applicants to the program last year, which was a 6% increase. They've added additional programs of green engineering business, and then the 10th grade academy business and IT pathway with Cincinnati State. So we're pleased that we're continuing to attract more students. 23 of the programs were waitlisted, so again, we're working on expanding our opportunities so that won't happen. But one of the new programs to help with that was adding a senior-only fire 1 and 2, and that was well received, and there were actually a lot of Lakota students who enrolled in that. Goal 2 is to reach the greatest number of students. Butler Tech student headcount last year was 18,164, so we're reaching a good percentage of our students in our satellite campuses as well as the main campus. And if you look at Butler Tech programming, 62% of the member school students participate in a Butler Tech program. The goal is to get that to 100, but right now it's 62%. If you look at our Project Life, which many people are familiar with, which is an opportunity for our students with special needs to continue their education, that continues to be replicated around the U.S. There's actually a Hawaii opportunity now to do Project Life, so everyone offers to go there on that trip. But there were 6 programs that started a Project Life after the Butler Tech model this past year. Goal 3 is ensuring financial stability. The cash balance at Butler Tech is 38% of annual revenue, so that's less than Lakota. That still is above the goal of being at 25% cash reserve. We've also, even with that financial stability, they've been able to add the Natural Science Center and bring that on course, continue to move forward and have signed contracts with the expansion of the Middletown Aviation Center, and continue to work on the partnership with Miami for the advanced manufacturing in Hamilton. Another big piece of the financial program right now is assuring computer replacements and doing that rolling replacement like we do here at Butler Tech, as well as infrastructure improvements. Goal 4 is outstanding stakeholder engagement. For industry credentials, on campus last year, there were 1,583 credentials earned with a passage rate of 74%. And if you look at the satellite campuses, We received 3,144 credentials with an 83% passage rate. Another piece is we talked about work-based learning. Last year, there were 286,000 hours of work-based learning, up from 71,000. So the expansion of our work-based learning has been significant. That's all I'll cover there. And then for goal 5 of organizational efficacy and inclusion, access, equity, and diversity, we looked at our gap closing skills. If you look at all students' achievement, it was 90.6. But our English language learners were at the lowest end of that spectrum at 74.3, so we'll continue to work on that. And then in trying to reach new groups, again, we've talked many times about Quantum Leap, which is the combination of Butler Tech, Miami businesses, government, and just different community groups coming in, and we continue to look at how Quantum Leap will best serve our students going forward and growing our opportunities there. So I think that's about it. So are there any questions?
No questions, but could you get a copy of that data to us, please?
Sure, I'll just send you the link. It's available on Board Docs. So
That's
you
great.
can see the whole presentation just right there on Board Docs. So I'll send that link.
Thank you.
Do those numbers of students enrolled in all the numbers you're reading, does that include the classes that are taught in our schools? Okay.
Yeah.
Hearing nothing else, community engagement. I believe we're in the process of planning a meeting to set up our next community conversations.
Yes. We had a community conversation last week for gifted that 124 adults attended, and I didn't count the kids, I didn't count the adults.
And we said we had at least 30
There's kids. It was very crowded, but it went very well, and we are taking all the feedback and giving it to our curriculum department, our gifted department, and then we are going to try to schedule another community conversation in the next couple of months on gifted to kind of follow up with some of the ideas. There was a lot of good conversation and a lot of great ideas, and we just need to give it to our gifted department and see how they can, what they can do with those ideas. So it was very, very good conversation.
Dr. Lawley, would you have anything else to add to that?
I would agree with Ms. Casper. I thought it was a good conversation. We've already started to work internally to go through a lot of the notes that were taken and a lot of suggestions that were made. And I'm hoping that by the beginning of the new year, 2024, that we'll have enough information and know what we need to do enough for next school year that we can actually have that second meeting and review that with parents and seek additional input and see if it's the way we want to head as a Board of Education and administrative team.
Is there anything else, Mrs. Casper?
I thought the facilitator did an excellent job in that meeting, particularly with how it was more crowded than was anticipated and more kids in the room than anticipated, and I thought she did an excellent job for her first meeting, just rolling with the punches.
Yeah,
Just to be impressed.
Keep it moving. And we did not get out of there right on time, which we like to do because we don't like to go over on, take advantage of people's time, so.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Would you say that there's an overall, are they overall happy overall with the gifted program, or is there a lot of opportunity there?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think that there was a lot of things that people would like to see. I think there was some things that one of the questions was, I believe was asked was, what are we doing well? What kind of things do we improve on? So I think there was a lot of conversation in the room, a lot of things that parents would like to talk about, maybe see more of, see some things less of. So I think it was.
What was the feedback from the students?
Well, they were all little. So there wasn't
Who
one
was
child
that
who
was
bless his little heart would break.
Very articulate. I
He was a fifth grader who stood up on a chair because there was that many people in the room and said that he would like more time for his gifted education intervention, and that he doesn't think that he was adorable. He doesn't think that his gifted intervention time should be less than the time he gets for lunch. So he would like to have a little bit more time. So,
Yeah, I would say there was general conversation about the model that we implemented a few years ago and how well that's working and how it might be improved, so. The notes actually have
the
been
notes,
posted.
you got an
You
email
can
on
look
the
well
notes.
to look at the notes from Mrs.
You
Fuller.
can look at, see what
Yes,
people said.
absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, you can, it's a little more in depth.
Yeah, this one's not-
It just came
Okay,
this week, or today, I think.
All right, we'll move on to Community Curriculum Advisory Team, the next meeting, Mr. Zink.
November 16th at 6.
Thank you. Community Diversity Council, Dr. Long.
We still do not have a date because we have not determined a facilitator for that meeting.
And we're still in the process of looking.
Yes, we are.
Facilities Committee, which will be the full board, and that's going to be,
On November 17th at 12. And I have publicly noticed these. They were last week's notice.
Finance,
Yes, I have one on Wednesday scheduled, just, is that
facility meeting on Wednesday at 5.
we had discussed that, and no one got back to me to say they were available that day.
I think we all said it in the meeting.
Yeah, I have it on my calendar.
We picked the date prior to coming into the meeting. And you asked us all
Yeah, I
if
think
you're
we're
down.
waiting for confirmation. Can we arrange that for this week?
Well,
Is Mr. Fasard available?
I can double check. I know he's out today, but let me double check and make sure he's here Wednesday.
I mean, I'm okay with waiting until November if that doesn't work, but I do have it on my calendar. But if we can't make that work, it's okay.
well, the thing is,
We will let everybody know.
if it's gonna work, it has to be noticed, because it's all of us. So we have to know by today, correct?
24 hours.
It's 24
Like I
hours.
said, we can do it tomorrow. So that'd be November 16th. What time?
It was supposed to be Wednesday, and I thought we had it all on our calendars. I thought the discussion we had prior to the last meeting was getting the date, and then I would have to go back.
Mine has a question mark beside it, so I don't feel that we would actually set the date.
It was 5 o'clock on the 18th, is what I had written down.
So we'll get back to the board sometime tomorrow after we have a chance to check with Mr. Fasard. Finance Committee, I believe you met on the 11th of this month.
We had a meeting on the 11th, Ms. Bodie.
We talked about Ohio checkbook, and the information for fiscal year 22 and 23 has been uploaded into the Ohio checkbook for review. We talked about if there was the ability to do more history, and there's really not at this point. So as time goes on, we'll be able to have, the charts will be more meaningful for trends. We also realized there was a little bit of a challenge. There's another Lakota in Ohio. And so some of the data was actually a combination of our Lakota and their Lakota. So.
We found out on the salary side.
Right, so when the salary seemed higher than we anticipated, because Adam has that number committed to his head, he's like, wait, there's something wrong here. So they were looking at how we might work through that to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future, and other data is not loaded in, since it is a little tricky with 2 Lakotas in the state of Ohio. So in addition to going over Ohio checkbook, we talked about policy 6231, which deals with the rate of growth of our expenses, and how it says that we can't spend more than the prior year's inflation, but how that can really vary from year to year, particularly as some expenses kind of might hit that are a little bit bigger, and how we might want to look at reviewing that policy so that we can make sure that we can deal with those fluctuations. So we said that we would bring that forward in the policy committee. And then we talked about having a November 20th special meeting as well. So, and then Adam also notified us that there has been a significant increase in the health insurance premiums. We've gone self-insured, and so it really is a reflection of our claims data. And this significant increase was 25%, but we're hopeful that that will not be a continuing trend, and even those who aren't self-insured have seen somewhat significant increases as well.
And then last but not least was House Bill 187, which is what we're talking about with flattening the rate of inflation that our property values have gone up, so it would be a 3-year average versus an individual year. So I think I've touched on everything
You
we're
covered a
talking
lot.
about.
Good job.
Mrs. Bodie, did you have anything?
I think she covered it all, really. I mean, policy 6231, we are not following the policy as of right now, and I think we just need to debate whether it would benefit the district to follow the policy, and if not, if it creates more work, then we should change a minor word from shall to may in our policy committee meeting, so it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up everything we talked about. We did have a much larger than anticipated increase to health insurance this year for calendar year 24, so that will go over fiscal year 24 and it'll go into fiscal year 25 because of where fiscal years go. So, not happy about that, but hopefully we get our hands on it. We have some interesting programs that healthcare, Horan, the healthcare third-party administrator, has brought forward that could maybe give some support to their staff as well. So we're going to see how that goes. Open enrollment will start a week from today. So
I had asked Mr. Zink also, I know in the past we've had actually much lower increases than anticipated. But the 10-year average wasn't it 6.4?
6.4, 6.6, something like that. So when you look at a 10-year average, it seems like that had been bad, but when that.
But getting it all in 1 year is not a good thing.
Yes, that's correct.
tough. It's very tough.
Yes.
All right, anything else on finance committee?
Yeah, the question is, did you say there's another according opportunity?
So in the Ohio checkbook, there is the accounts payable side that we're all very familiar with, but then when you go into the Treasurer State site, you'll see a place where it will say salaries. So we went into Lakota on the salaries, and as soon as we went into that, that's not something we submit. I believe they get that from the OBE data. And as soon as we went into it, I saw the number was 125 million. I go, well, that's not right. Because we should be somewhere in the 115 to 118 range, right in there. And the Lakota to the north is about 1,000 kid district. And so then when thinking about, school size and all that, that's when I was like, okay, obviously they have our data merged with their data, which is why that looks higher than it really is.
Probably was terrifying for them to see our budget.
Yeah, that's what we need to do. It would be much more exciting for them.
Yeah.
I need to tip them off up there and say, hey, check out your salaries data.
We did get a nasty email once from a parent that was for that Lakota when I was board president, something about cutting the grass at Wall. And I was like, took us a while to figure out that it wasn't us.
We do get an
The
invoice
building
from them.
was not one of our.
Yeah, it was a building that wasn't ours, they named the building, I'm like, yeah, that's not.
Every now and then we'll get an invoice that belongs to them instead of, and so when we go through our process and we check things, we send it to the north.
So this is a fixable issue with the Ohio checkbook?
We'll find out. It should be. You would assume it should be based on how they would be pulling that data in. But if it's the way they have that database set up, then we'll know more when we point that out.
Well, they could rename us to the Big Lakota.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, did not expect that one. We'll move to legislative committee. Dr. Mulvey, Mr. Zink.
Several bills have been referred back to committee or referred to committee. One that has been introduced as of 9/27 is regarding academic intervention services. And it basically is saying that each public school needs to amend the section in the Ohio Revised Code 3314.03, and it would take effect January 2025 to continue with those changes. So it's amending how we do intervention services. They have introduced that, nothing more with that one in particular. There is conversation about the elected state board of education personnel still. That's been referred back to the committee, House Government Oversight. as of 9/26, so that will be interesting to watch. Evacuation plans for students with disabilities was referred to committee, both the House and the for secondary education on 9/26. It was introduced on 9/12. And basically, it's making sure that our emergency management language provides for evacuation of students with disabilities. And the majority of, in my experience and here in Lakota, the plans that are put in place do include that. This is to make sure, I guess, that other schools that don't have that in place put that in place. So that bill, it has been introduced as well. And then there's Community Connectors Workforce Program that has been re-referred to committee, and it was reported out on at the end of June, and it's been re-referred back to the committee both on 9/12, and it's in committee right now as of the report that I have from 9/26. One that we are hoping will work through has been referred to the committee, the Senate Education Committee. It was passed by the House in June, and it was referred to the Senate Education Committee on September 13th, and that's the elimination of the third grade reading retention policy. Making sure that students are not retained just because they don't pass the third grade reading test, but instead require extensive intervention until they do actually pick up those learning standards, especially in phonics. So that's in the Senate Education Committee at this point. And then there are several others that are have been referred back to committee from previous legislation. If you want me to continue to go through those. Okay. The financial literacy education on capitalism, that was the current status is the House Primary and Secondary Education. It's during its second hearing right now. And that's to make sure that it's to incorporate free market capitalism content into the high school financial literacy and entrepreneurship standards in the model curriculum. So that's the basis of that particular legislative piece. Excessive absenteeism, that one is on 9/12, a substitute bill was accepted. So the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee are doing a third hearing on that. This one is regarding excessive absenteeism, excused absences, and reporting of graduation rates, and to amend the versions of the Ohio Revised Code 2151.01 and 3314.03, and that would take effect again January 2025. So there's more to that one, but it's mostly to try to combat the excessive absenteeism that schools around Ohio are suffering. And then virtual meetings for public bodies, that's been referred back to the House Government Oversight Committee. It was introduced in August, and it's to authorize certain public bodies to meet virtually and to declare, when they declare an emergency. So it's similar to what we had during COVID, but something that would allow public entities to do that in an emergency environment. And let's see. Those are probably of interest. We have another revision of College Credit Plus that is now in the House Higher Education Committee for first hearing. That's to increase the amount available, I believe, to students to the College Credit Plus program. So that's been going on for quite a bit of time, and our policies have continued to change over time as well. So I think those are kind of the highlights for the educational ones.
I think there's also one more piece that that actually happens for us, and that I do not remember. I forgot to write it down on an agenda, but there was a bill about changing the fifth year graduation counting against a district on the report card, and I don't remember the number for that, but that would be wonderful for us if that happens. When our students need that extra year, and it doesn't count as a negative against the district, that would be for our special needs students. That would be.
Was that one included in the one with the third grade retention the one that I said something about graduation.
It may have been
I think that one, I'm not sure, but we can double check that.
Mr. Singh?
On the financial side, the exciting one has been House Bill 187 on last Wednesday, October 11th, it was passed in the House. Essentially, the short version of House Bill 187 is it'll go with the 3-year average for property tax reappraisals and updates versus the weighted average that they currently use. They are trying to get that in place for tax year 23, which would be tax year 23 are the bills that are paid in calendar year 24. So for this upcoming year, it does have a 3-year sunset on it, and so it would be good for basically that 3-year reappraisal or update cycle for everybody in the state. Then it was approved without any amendments. I believe there's 3 amendments that went, and none of them ended up making it. So there's been some chatter about the 2004 for some districts, as well as homestead rollbacks and things of that nature. So more to come. The next time they'll be able to review is going to be on October 24th or 25th. So still in the works, but it'll be interesting to see if that goes through and it doesn't go through quickly. Then it could run into timing issues with cash flows for government entities, us included. So that's another place where we were kind of looking at it, talking through in the office today, the impacts that could cause. You know, if let's say tax bills weren't able to go out until June, for example, if that was the case, then it would be tricky for some places with timing if they didn't have the cash in reserves. So that's one positive that we have is, you know, when we talk about the true days cash and how long, you know, it could last, you know, we would hope this wouldn't happen. And they're all aware of that. They're all very aware of the issues that could cause. But that would be that could make for an interesting look on fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 if that was the case. If we really did have a timing issue, it would look like we had a ridiculous, huge deficit spend in fiscal year 24, and then a very, very, very tons of reserves for fiscal 25 if we essentially had 1.5 times our property tax collections. So let's all hope that that doesn't happen. If they decide they're going to do something with this, let's hope that it goes in a way that they can handle it all, and timing doesn't become an issue.
For the sake of our taxpayers, absolutely. Mrs. Casper, anything on legislative?
No, just that the last thing we heard is that they're back in session, but probably not for long. So,
I think what we heard was the House has 3 session days planned, and the Senate has 7 planned, and won't necessarily use all of those, which was a little bit surprising. I think that window.
right, so a lot of the bills that have been referred, maybe will probably stay here till the year.
Pretty good on it.
Yeah.
I do also want to note, and I believe you were being recognized the next day, but Dr. Lawler has been recognized as the outstanding superintendent of Ohio between our last meeting and today. So congratulations again. Safety Committee, Mr. Zink.
Next meeting scheduled for 10 a.m. on November 17th.
And I need to remember to talk to Dr. Lawley about the community member reached out on a safety issue they wanted to share with the board. So I'll talk to him afterwards about that. Board professional development. Mrs. Casper and I attended the OSBA Southwest Region. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. Okay. Everybody see you. That's wonderful. I didn't realize you were there.
Was that so big that she wasn't?
Did you want to say anything?
I lost my train of thought. Put the baby in a corner. Yes, we were there. We were very, very late because we ran into traffic, like very bad traffic. But as always, it was informative. We did get to hear a little bit of the student performances, which is all my favorite that the students get to. It was very efficiently well-run meeting. You're out of there.
The President's Award this year went to Mary Cleveland's Princeton City School District, and they had done this, I think it's a great program, something to think about. They call it the Princeton Work Ethic Program. And they have kids that are actually employed in internships for the district, might be in the operational side or involved in janitorial services or child nutrition or some other areas. And they're learning real-world work-life experiences in the process. And we've talked a lot about how do we incorporate more career tech awareness and programming through our traditional K-12 programming. And this might be something that would be worth considering.
I also had some training, professional development. It's an organization from Focus on it's a branch off of Focus on the Family, which is a Christian group, and this School Board Academy is focusing on parental rights and ensuring that we do not, as a board and as a school district, take away the rights of the parent. And so we discussed at this training the harms and the dangers of critical race theory, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and SEL, which I've been saying all along are harmful and divisive for our students.
No, that's it. Want to move back to the Southwest Conference?
Certainly.
The new president of the Ohio School Board Association was there and spoke, and I thought she did a very nice job kind of summarizing what she's been asked and what the focus has been. So, she did a good conversation.
And she did acknowledge that Southwest is best, not best. So that's nice to see.
Are you talking about Kathy McFarland? She's the executive director. We were talking about this. They were both very well. Both instructors were very well.
All right, anything else? We'll move to treasurer's recommendations, action items. And we're going to separate A, approval of board minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Schaefer. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Adi. Discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. D? Yes. Ms. Bodie?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes. We'll move to B, approval of monthly financial reports. Do I have a motion?
So,
Thank you, Mr. D. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. Is there discussion?
Yes, I will not be approving the finance report for this month and basically for the whole year. So with the other, I do approve the report of the. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. The report, the financial report for the month.
Did you want to provide any further detail?
Yes, some of the expenditures, we spent $111,000 on PACS training, and I do not approve of that. It's a form of SEL, and it is teaching how to reward behavior that it should already be expected from our students. And we also are spending money on racist books that are being taught in Wyandotte, and more information on that to come.
Dr. Lowen, did you want to respond to any of that at this point? And have you brought those concerns forward?
I just got the information today. I'm putting it forward right now. And I have a meeting with her later this week. Thank you.
I'm sorry, didn't hear
I
that.
have a meeting with Dr. Lally later this week.
Very well. Mr. Jones?
yeah, I wanted to ask Dr. Lawler, what are those books regarding racism? When you get them, let's know what those books are.
I can gather that for you.
Because if there are books about racism,
You actually got the email. It's in your folder.
I don't think we're teaching books about it.
Finish what you're saying, Mr.
Yeah,
D.
you are.
Racism does exist.
Mr. D has the floor right now.
yeah, so we really need to know what those materials are. We can dig into it to see what they're all about. So I'm interested.
Yes, and the other thing that I would say is that the PACS training is a series of responses to, it's part of, PBIS is the required program for classroom management in the state of Ohio. taxes, another programmatic piece that you can add to PBIS, which teaches children behaviors that are expected in a classroom. And that was funded through a partnership. It wasn't funded through Lakota Local Schools, but it was through a partnership grant that was received. Just for additional information.
I have a question for you on social emotional learning. Just for the purpose of those that might not know what it is that something that Lakota introduced, or is a state curriculum?
The state actually has a curriculum for social emotional learning, and they identify what we should be teaching in the classroom for student social and emotional growth and development. There are 5 areas of growth and development. There's academic, there's aesthetic, which means your fine arts, there's physical, there's social, and there's emotional. Those have been part of curriculums for ever and ever and ever. And if you look at any developmentally appropriate work that has been done for the last 75, 80 years, you'll see those 5 areas of growth and development, beginning with young children, teaching them the behaviors that how to get along with people, and emotional, how do I control my emotion? You know, I'm gonna throw a temper tantrum, well, how do I stop and think about that first? Those are the kinds of things that have been in very early childhood curriculums for many, many years. The state took a lot of those practices, those developmental stages, and put them into a curriculum that's implemented in Lakota and other schools around the state.
Yeah, so that's state program. Then the next follow-up question for you is, I support parent choice as well. So the question here is it mandatory for every child, or parents have a choice to say, I don't want my child to participate?
The way that social emotional learning is taught here in elementary, it's a class, one time a week for a total of 18 weeks. So students have 18 sessions throughout the school year, and that can be the first quarter, they have 9 sessions, and then maybe third quarter they have 9 additional. It's the same thing with music, it's the same thing with art, it's the same thing with physical education, and it's the same thing with technology and STEM. That's how we do the teacher planning time. That's what happens is the students go to the social emotional learning classroom and are taught there. If a parent does not want a student to participate in that, they would just need to identify that and let the school know that. But before a parent did that, I would ask that they take a look at the actual curriculum and see if they believe that that would benefit their child or not. If they don't believe it would benefit their child, then they could absolutely ask for them to spend that time in the innovation lab, reading a book, or, you know, it's 18 times during the school year.
So choice is, I mean, they have the choice.
In anything that we teach, we always, in all the time I've ever been in education, parents have always had the right to say, I don't want my student to do that topic. But what we ask parents to do is take a look at what the topic actually is and make sure that they understand what's being covered, what's being talked about. Absolutely.
I would like to add on that.
Are you finished, Mrs.
Yes,
Booth?
I'm done.
Mrs. Booth?
I would like to state that SEL, although it has good lessons that they are learning that's taking away from the education of our children, these are things that the parents should be taught. And within the SEL program, they are using this transgender ideology and LGBTQ agenda to try to push that on the students. And if they disagree, they are being pressured. And unfortunately, it's anti-Christian and it's anti anybody else who disagrees. And the SEL, even though there's an opt-out option at the beginning of the school year, which sometimes the teachers do not give out this paperwork consistently throughout the whole school, they're still putting pressure on the parents to not opt out. And they also there's the PBIS, the information that you gather from that, and the results of that, again, is being misused, and the parents, sorry, I lost my train of thought now, but the parents are not always able to sit by their child, and they can't monitor whether or not that SEL class or the PAPS or the PBIS information, even though they opt out, they're not always, it's throughout the whole, it's deeply woven within the curriculum of all of the classes. So even though you opt out of SEL, it's still deeply embedded into the everyday lesson. So I do not support it. We spent $111,000. It's on the report. So whether it's a grant or not, we're still spending this money. And I don't agree with it. And regarding the books at Wyandotte that they purchased, I will just go ahead and say what they are. One was Waking Up White, and Finding Myself in the Story of Race. And this is, this book was basically talking about, anyway, sorry, you can do your research on that one. And then also The Separate is Never Equal, which is, again, these are great. These are books that are being taught in K through 12th grade. And so they're saying separate is never equal, which is, it's a backdoor racist book at best. And it's saying, it's just basically saying that black people are racist, which is, again, not always true. And so these two books, and that's on the social justice, it's on the social justice website. So again, we're teaching racism and we're teaching social justice in K through 2nd grade, which I don't think that's appropriate for our 2nd graders to learn about that.
I'd like to find out whether or not that book was used as a whole class book or if it was a book of choice that students could choose. So I'll get back to you
Well,
on
2nd
that.
graders can definitely not read Waking Up White because it is an adult book. And as far as The Separate is Never Equal, again, it's painting white people as oppressors. And although that is something that has happened in the past, to say that it is happening, that has happened in the past, this is something that we need to ensure that is age appropriate when teaching and not making kindergarten through 2nd graders feel guilty for being white. And that's exactly what this book does.
Again, I'll investigate how it was used. And I'll get back to the board on that. I can't address how it was used. I don't know if it was part of a book collection that was purchased for their school library. I don't know what the details are, but I'll talk with the principal and find that out. And then I'll ask how it was actually used and if it was used, and then I'll report back to you.
It was a grant, $2,000 grant from Walmart that they applied for and won. And there were some books in there that I could see are good books to have, but those two books I specifically have a problem with. And they were not age appropriate at all. And they're teaching that whites are racist and making the kindergarten through 2nd graders feel bad for being white. That's not okay.
Is there anything further, Mrs. Brown?
Not on that subject, thank you.
Dr. Lally, one moment, please. Dr. Lally, Mrs. Bodie has expressed many concerns there. If you would please evaluate that once you have a chance to meet with her.
Yes, as I said earlier, I'll check out why, not why, but what was purchased and how it was actually used in the school.
Thank you.
I'll do both.
We look forward to the report back. Thank you. Mrs. Casper?
I have something.
We're going to let everybody else talk for a moment first. Mrs. Casper? Did you want to say something?
I do. Just let me collect my thoughts a minute. We are not pushing a transgender agenda in SEL in any part of any building. We are not teaching our kids for the 1 millionth time that whites are oppressors. We've got to stop.
Mrs. Bodie, Mrs. Casper has the
You had
floor.
your soapbox. I don't know why we continue. SEL, we're teaching kindergartners to be kind to each other. We're teaching kindergartners that if you start to get upset, maybe you step away and you count to 10. We're teaching 1st graders to talk to the person that's sitting alone at the lunch table and maybe make a new friend. this big boogeyman that we keep looking for that isn't there and just is constantly brought up is exhausting. And there's nothing wrong with teaching the values that you say should be taught at home. I absolutely agree with you. Unfortunately, not all parents are teaching them, and we are a public school that are required to educate all children.
But that's not our job to teach
It
them.
is
That's
our
our
job because they have to be able to
No.
learn. And if they aren't ready to learn, if they're stressed or hungry or upset about something going on at home, yes, it's our job to make sure we can get them in a headspace where they can learn.
Well, it's not working. Our grades are suffering, our grades are lower than in the past several years, they've slowly declined. So it's obvious that SEL is not working.
Mrs. Bodie, you need to let everybody else have a voice also.
Sorry, I just,
You
Please
don't
stop.
get a
stupidity, I just can't.
You're out of order again. Mrs. Casper, do you have anything else? Audience,
The stupidity is not, it's not stupidity, it's making sure that all kids get what they need to learn. I am not out for looking for something horrible in each and everything that our teachers do. And I believe that SEL is important to these students.
And you can hear that home.
Mrs. Bodie,
Again, we're a public
Mrs.
school.
Casper, it's directed to
We're a public school. We need to educate all children in public schools. And if a parent doesn't want their child to be educated in a public school, they have the option to put them someplace else. That's all I hear.
Any other comments, Mrs. Schaefer, Mr. Dean?
Sure. I actually pulled up what PACS actually is, and it says the PACS Good Behavior Game helps to build children's self-regulation, resulting in improved focus and attention, improved test scores and other academic outcomes, reduced alcohol and other drug use, reduced psychiatric disorders, and reduced suicide. PACS is unique in arranging for peer reinforcement for exhibiting pro-social behavior and peer reinforcement for inhibiting problematic behavior. PACS truly benefits everyone by making the children the heroes of change. I'm not sure why that would be negative in any way.
There is a challenge, what do they change?
And then there's also 4 learning domains according to the Ohio Department of Education, and they have a report, Each Child Our Future, and on page 3 it talks about those 4 learning domains. And it's foundational knowledge and skills, well-rounded content, leadership and reasoning, and social emotional learning. So that is one of the pillars that we are responsible for in curriculum. So at a time when I keep hearing about test scores, if we decide not to cover one of the 4 pillars that the state of Ohio has said we need to, I don't think that that's going to be beneficial for our test scores when our kids can't respond to those issues. I also don't want a situation where because you don't want your child to be exposed to something, that prevents my child from being exposed to something.
Audience, please refrain from the applause.
So that to me, you are banning my child access to a book because you've decided you don't want that book to be read by your child.
I'm not banning access to a book, I don't know
Mrs.
where you got
Bodie.
that.
Oh my gosh. That's
Mrs. Schaefer.
I said it's not age appropriate.
So I hope that we can continue to educate our children. And again, I agree with Mrs. Casper. In a perfect world, all of our children would come and be perfect little angels. But when I've heard feedback that there was actually a child who was pulled out of the classroom and then they asked why they got in a fight and they were told because they were promised ice cream by their parent if they fought this other child. When we have kids coming to school with those issues and that home life, we absolutely need to make sure that we instill values where all of our children can get along, work together, and be educated.
Thank you. Mr. Dean?
I have something.
I have something as well. so-
Okay, then I'd like to go over you, thank you.
When we're talking about SEL, we're talking about what used to be called character education. And the reason that matters, parents need to raise their kids. but schools need to help parents educate their kids. And that only happens if we have environments that are conducive to learning. And if we don't have things like PBIS, which is positive behavior interventions, if we don't have things like teaching kids self-management, self-regulation, anger issues, respect for other people, not only are they not going to be learning in a classroom, but they're not learning life skills that they need to have when they leave our buildings. There's a reason why those programs have been put into the state standards. And I agree with you, PACS is one form of being able to do that. It's an outside organization that provides that. And prior to this, I've not heard negative comments about it. In fact, I hear our staff really appreciate that they have that option
Of course they do.
as a piece of classroom management. So, Mrs. Bodie, do you have any further comments?
So two, number one, are you saying you support SEL?
Do you have further comments of your own?
I would like the answer. Are
I'm
you
not
saying-
going to have a back and forth
So
conversation.
you're not going
with
to
you.
publicly state that you support SEL, although your statement just said you supported it. Thank you. Number one, SEL is not mandated by the state, and there's a mandate SEL, but I've spoken with the Ohio Department of Education, and it is not mandated by the state. And number two, it is not our responsibility to fix the failures of parents. It's not our responsibility. And again, like I said, PBIX rewards behavior that should be expected. We are not punishing our students for bad behavior, and it is not acceptable. And I do not support spending $111,000 on this, although the rest of the board clearly does. Thank you.
So, final comment on it. If a classroom is not conducive to learning, student learning is not happening. And that has to be something we acknowledge. And I think the fact that our students come to us from different places, different backgrounds, different family structures, all of what has already been talked about, there has to be a way to manage that to make it conducive for learning. And that's why it matters. We're going to move on.
I believe we need to vote on.
We are, I'll be happy to restate the motion.
Thank you, please.
We are under our approval of, board go all the way back to treasurer's recommendations B. We have a first and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Bodie?
No.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes. Board will move to superintendent recommendation action items. We're going to look at A, C, and D together, approve personnel items, approve donations, and the Beacon Tri-Health Sports Medicine Sponsorship Agreement. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. D. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Schaefer. Is there discussion? Hearing none. I'm sorry, Dr. Muller.
I'd just like to make a comment. I'd like to thank Christina French for her service here in the Lakota local schools. She's been a long-term employee here, and I'd just like to thank her publicly for the work she's done.
Thank you. With nothing further, please call the roll.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Ms. Bodie?
No.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes. Board will move to B under superintendent recommendations. That's approval of field trips. Is there a first?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Schaefer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. D. Is there discussion?
Yes.
Mrs. Bodie.
So there are two field trips that I would like to speak about. First is the FCCLA. This culture the culture that inspired the founding documents of this country is the culture that gave freedom and wealth to common people, and more people and prosperity for minorities than any other country or culture on the planet. Our children deserve to be taught the culture that gave them the living standard they and their parents enjoy today. This program wants to amalgamate cultures as if all cultures are the same. How do you amalgamate one culture that believes in individual liberties and self-determination with one that believes in dictatorships or the service of a bureaucracy? With regard to cultures, our children need a true understanding of American culture, and this program is the antithesis of that. And then regarding the NICE K-12 field trip, this is just more racist indoctrination being taught at this convention. Board, why are we continuing to use organizations that push this divisive agenda? And regarding DEI, I thought we were phasing it out, and I thought we had decided it was a bad thing. We do not need more programs pushing racism and social justice on our students.
So for clarification, FCCLA is a career tech student organization. It's Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, and the FCCLA conference is a leadership conference for students. Would anyone like to say anything further about?
I would just like to say that you decided that we were phasing out diversity, equity, and inclusion. Nobody else did. I didn't make that decision.
Are you saying the rest of the board does support
Mrs.
DEI?
Bodie,
Yes.
you do not have the floor. Could we please not respond back?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
This
Let's
is a great
keep it-
opportunity for our students, and any student that I've known that's attended this has raved about how much they learned about leadership.
And we've had students who've been able to take leadership roles within the organization, and that has served them well in their future endeavors. So I look forward to our students rising in this situation and being leaders there.
Dr. Long, comments?
You know, I think that I've looked at all of the field trips, and I believe all of them were worthwhile for our students. They provide a variety of experiences, and I think they support their learning. And there aren't that many students even involved in some of these. I wish we could have more students involved in many of the opportunities that some of these field trips provide.
Anyone, any further discussion?
Yes.
Mrs. Bodie?
Although that these are great opportunities for our students, unfortunately the Marxists are using this opportunity to teach anti-American theology and teaching our children to feel bad about being white. Taken off of the website for FCCLA, promoting racial understanding, cultural amalgamation, and influencing social values, and then taking off of the agenda for the NICE K through 12. It says, diversity, equity, and inclusion are essential skills for students in both academic and professional environments and can significantly impact the success of graduates. I would say, yes, it does significantly impact the success by creating failure and making them less successful by focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion, which is racism, and a Marxist agenda, which is exactly what these two organizations are implementing. Thank you.
Any further comments? Very well. We have a motion and a second for B, for the superintendent recommendations for approving field trips. Mr. Zink?
Ms. Schaefer?
No, or yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Bodie?
No.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes. We'll move to closing comments. Mrs. Bodie?
I think I've said all my comments. Thank you.
Mrs. Casper? I'm sorry, Mrs. Schaefer?
Thank you to our students who came and did the community garden. That was great to see, and I look forward to that continuing many years into the future. If you look at that same report in the Ohio Department of Education about research supporting SEL, it states on page 4, students with well-designed and well-implemented instruction and social emotional learning benefit over the long term in the areas of academic behaviors, attitudes, and skills. So I look forward to our students continuing to benefit from that. In addition, I looked up before today's meeting because I feel like this has become sort of a point of contention of what education is. And according to the dictionary, it's a noun, the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school, the theory and practice of teaching, a body of knowledge acquired while being educated, information about or training in a particular field or subject, an enlightening experience. So I hope we can continue to educate our students on a broad spectrum of subjects and topics and help them grow. And I think that is what our staff is doing every day. And I look forward to continuing to have a complete education, not just in specific topics.
Unfortunately, it's indoctrination, not
Mrs.
education,
Williams,
that's happening.
it is not your floor. Mrs. Schaefer, do you have one? Mrs. Casper?
Students, yes, Spotlight was great. I love the community garden. Sorry. I thought they did a great job with the planning, and I love the part about the finances and how they should under budget, and then you can come in under budget, you have a few extra dollars left if you want to go buy another plant. But yeah, so thank you, Mrs. Fuller, for all of those student spotlights. It's what we should be focusing on. The great things that our students are doing every day, the fact that they can think outside the box and come up with things like the community garden. These are things that are important to them and important to their livelihood and their future. And it's almost like it's SEO, which I totally believe in, because we are raising the next generation. I mean, we are educating the next generation, and if you could spend 10 minutes in a classroom in a high school and see what these kids are talking about and engaging in, they're far smarter than a lot of adults. And I think that in a public school, that is our job. And again, if a parent doesn't want a public school education, they have options. Our job is to educate every single child that walks through our door, regardless of their circumstances. And I'm proud that we continue to do that.
Thank you, Lori.
I too want to thank the students that came and the teacher that did the garden. I think it's a great opportunity and experience for them. As we continue to talk about social and emotional learning, as someone who, as an early childhood educator for many, many years and worked with developmentally appropriate practice, the belief that social and emotional learning is indoctrination is far from the experience that I've had with social and emotional learning. It's actually students learning how to be kind to each other, students learning how to behave with each other, students learning how to self-regulate, as we've talked about, and then moving those skills into higher levels each and every time that they grow and they develop even more. And taking a look at what that offers in a classroom is it offers the opportunity to build a unit that works together as a team for that school year, or that if they're multi-age, like the students that were in the building where I was a principal, for those 2 years, they develop a team, they develop a family unit where they support each other and grow and develop together, and it's not a negative environment. The idea of using PBIS as the overarching classroom management opportunity includes the initial phasing of rewards, and that's eventually phased out, because eventually the brain intrinsically rewards itself. So we start off with rewards that are extrinsic rewards in a PBIS situation, and then we move away from that as students become more and more engaged in their own learning and are more responsible for their behaviors. PACS as actions that a teacher, or signals that a teacher gives for a student, helps them regulate themselves, and it's along with the CHAMPS program that's also out there related to PBIS, which are building level type activities. How do we walk in lines? How do we behave in the cafeteria? How do we treat each other? What do we do in the restroom when we go into the restroom? So you avoid a lot of the things that cause issues in a public school. Those are all classroom management strategies. And again, in my experience, I have not experienced any type of indoctrination or anything like that whenever we've used those in buildings and in districts where I've been involved in for the last many years, when those have become part of looking at students' behavioral mental health and also looking at how we recover basically from COVID. And many schools were doing PBIS and PACS and CHAMPS a long time before COVID, but it was even more important when we came back because students had been without lots of supports that they needed to have before. So rebuilding that confidence and rebuilding that ability of student to be able to manage and to function in positive ways in a school is extremely important in public education, in any school environment. It's important so that we remove those barriers from the academic achievement, the academic learning that needs to take place, and the teaching that needs to occur. So I just, I have not seen in all the visits that I've made over the last 2 months, I've not seen indoctrination, I have not seen any kind of behaviors that would warrant me believing that something out of the way that shouldn't be happening in our classrooms would be happening, because it is my job to help protect students in this district, and I haven't seen anything that I believe is harming students in any way. Our teachers are responsible, our principals are responsible, our staff members are responsible, and I have not seen anything that would cause me to believe that there's some underlying nefarious situation going on in our classrooms. So I just want to say that, because it's not happening here that I have seen, and I've been in classrooms, and I've actually sat in classrooms and watched lessons. So I just wanted to say
I do
that.
have something to say regarding
Thank
that.
you. Mrs. Bodie, you do not have the floor. You've had your turn. Mr. Zink.
I would like to rebuttal what she is saying.
13.
Mrs. Bodie, you are out of order. We're in closing comments. We are not in rebuttal or debate.
Well,
It is
Madam
Mr.
President,
Zink's
I would
turn.
like to have a comment.
Mrs.
please.
Bodie, it is not your
Well,
turn
the
to speak.
LGBTQ stickers that say safe place and all are welcome here are not,
Mrs. Bodie, you are out of order.
are causing a lot of distress.
Mr. Zink.
And it's creating a toxic atmosphere.
Mrs. Bodie, you are out of order.
I was just
And
going
she
to
will
say
have
that
that.
it's hard to believe that this is the last week for football season. It seems like season had just started, and this is the last week, and the temperature up here makes me feel like the falls and all. So that's all I have.
It's definitely cold enough that none of us could drift off, right?
No.
Mr. Zink.
I want to give a shout out to our students that did their presentation today. I'm very proud when I see our students come out to show us who they are and what they're doing to be successful in their life. I want to also add to the comments that we've had tonight. Dr. Rowley, I so much believe in what you can do. And trust me, I know if there's anything up there, you're going to look at it, and we are interested in get it back to us. But I want to also say that there's more into board meeting. During the weeks, sometimes when I have issues, I pick up my phone, I call you. Or if I think there's anything I think I need to hear more, I try to hear it. It's much more than just only coming to a board meeting and share views that are maybe my own personal views or perception that I have. It's okay to have perception, but it's okay to go out and reach out, get more information, go into details, so that when you are speaking with confidence and with facts and maybe evidence. So I know social emotional learning, from what I've learned so far and from the documents you've shared, is okay. Probably I see some things there, I don't know. But what I always say is that parents should be involved in the education of their children. If there's any issue, they observe anything, they should come to you. And if there's any parent that feel like, okay, I don't want to present myself, come to us as board members. We can come to you as anonymous, get the information regarding whatever is going on in the lives of the kids, and make sure that it's taken care of. But sometimes there are information out there from other schools, but this is Lakota. I want to focus on what is in Lakota. Whatever is going on in Lakota is our responsibility as the board of Lakota, not the board of education in the United States of America or this entire state. So thank you so much. I'm very happy that you said you've observed things, and if there's anything that's not right, you're going to fix it. And trust me, if I have anything I have a problem with, I'll reach out to you. Thank you so much for
In my mind, demonstrating respect for other people is the most important skill set our kids need to be successful when they leave our buildings. And in terms of being able to learn, I believe that a common expectation for good behavior and internalizing those expectations is incredibly important so that every child can learn in a classroom without distractions. That's why it matters. Thank you for the clarification that you offered, and we'll look forward to further down the road. The gardening event was pretty incredible. I think they actually, looking at my summer pots and how long I've stuck with those, they have had much more resiliency than I have demonstrated. So, very, very impressed that they were so consistent and really understood that this was a long-term project and stuck with it. As Mr. Zink noted, it's a busy time of year with fall football. It seems like it's gone past so quickly. A lot of opportunities for watching your kids and their successes. Our marching bands have been doing great. A lot of other things coming up this time of year, many concerts, that kind of stuff. So please take a moment to get out and see what great things our kids are doing if you have the opportunity. And on a final note, when we talk about the Step the Bus project, which started many, many years ago, it started because there is need within our community that a lot don't recognize. There are deep pockets of need in some parts of our community. The Step the Bus will help reach out Lakota to honor those needs for the next several months, and so it's really important. I think our drive is the biggest drive that they have all year, so it's really important that we do what we can to help support. Thank you, everybody, for an interesting meeting, and with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Schaefer. And your second, Mrs. Casper. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Ms. Bodie?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes. Thanks, everyone, for being here.